what Jim said was that on August 22nd, when the countries meet in Johannesburg, they will issue a gold-backed currency. Now, there's been pushback by some of the folks in Johannesburg saying, no, it's not on the docket. And let's just take a step back for a minute. And he said something else in that piece that I thought was far more significant. Now, first and foremost, I do believe that they will issue a gold-backed or commodity-backed currency. They've been saying this for a very long time. Will they do it August 22nd? I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't really care because I don't think it matters. What he said about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union had far more impact on me. Now, I've been talking about those two groups along with the BRICS and the Belt Road Initiative in nearly every video I've done for the better part of 4 years. I've done over 1,200 videos on this. And, you know, the thing of it is that the reason I would talk about those organizations is that there's a lot of crossover amongst them. It was very obvious to me that the Belt Road Initiative, which is 151 or 2 countries, the BRICS, which has now swelled to over 41 countries, I'm going to get to that in one moment, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union, well, they have very, very much similarity in their memberships, a lot of crossover where one country belongs to a couple, Russia belongs to basically all of them. And you could see that this was a union that ultimately would come together, although I never said it would be that way. I just kind of assumed that would happen. Well, he's saying that will happen August 22nd. Now, one of the reasons I believe that is that if you look online and see where, you say how many countries have joined BRICS or want to join BRICS, you'll see 41 everywhere. But in those same articles, if you count them, you get 25. Now, if you take the countries in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union that haven't already joined BRICS and add them into the number 25, you get damn near 41. And I'll simply say this, let's talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization for a minute. It is the largest regional and military group in the world. It is 60% of the Eurasian landmass, 40% of human population. The Belt Road Initiative right now, with all of its expansion, is 75% of human population, 50% of global GDP, or it's swelling. And when you talk about putting all of these countries together, the Belt Road, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Eurasian Economic Union, and BRICS, you're talking 80+% of human population. Now that's the foundation. And all the people who are talking about the BRICS are missing one point. And I have been very consistent in this one point for a very long time. And let me just lay the foundation. And that is, I ask people what makes the dollar the world reserve currency. And I've been very, very adamant about the protection of the Saudi kingdom. Now, I did miss one thing, and I'll get to that in a second, but it's the protection of the Saudi kingdom, arguably, that has given the dollar its hegemony for the past 50 years. And when we saw Saudi Arabia sign an agreement with Russia for protection, Nigeria the next day, when we saw Saudi Arabia formally apply to BRICS, we've seen Saudi Arabia formally apply to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We have seen Saudi Arabia formally apply to the BRICS New Development Bank. And we have seen Saudi Arabia tell the folks in Davos that they're open to taking other currencies for oil. So while August 22nd will not mark the end of the dollar as we know it, and there is a lot of dollar debt that needs to be funneled through and washed out and cleansed out of the system, and there's a lot left in the dollar to say it's over. It's not over, but I will simply say this. When you put 80% of the world who right now is trading or will be trading in a common settlement currency, and Saudi Arabia flips the switch and says, listen, you've protected us for 50 years. We appreciate it. But you've signed an executive order saying you're going almost completely green by 2050, roughly 50% green in just a few short years in 2030. Your currency's been inflated, and we see you have 150+ trillion in in unfunded liabilities and liabilities. So we know you're going to have to print. So we're going to join with the folks, roughly 80% of human population, if not more, who are not going green. Two of the three largest nuclear arsenals in the world and a whole bunch of countries that share similar interests. So I guess what I'm simply saying is this: the trend is in motion. And when you talk about the fact that this is a BRICS settlement currency, when you have the majority of the world settling in energy outside the dollar, it is going to wreak havoc on all of the settlement in the dollar, thereby eroding its reserve status. Now, I want to just make 2 points about my conversation with Jim Rickards. One, as far as the bond market is concerned, that's the difference between a reserve currency and a transaction currency. And he talked about how during World War I, they used patriotism to build a bond market, buy the war bonds. If this plays out the way that I think it will, where at some point Saudi Arabia moves to taking other currencies, perhaps the BRICS settlement currency, and if not before that, maybe the yuan, which is convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, or whatever it is, and all of these countries dump dollars. They no longer need to hold those dollars. If it plays out the way that I think it will, and the dollar loses a tremendous amount of value, interest rates start to spike, the markets start to come down, there's all sorts of problems, it would be very easy for the BRICS nations to say, in the name of patriotism, in the name of standing on our own 2 feet, this entire group buy the BRICS bonds and backed by gold or whatnot. I don't think building a bond market in a system that is housing 80% of the world will be that big of an issue. That was one of the things he said in terms of it ultimately becoming a reserve. And the last thing that he said was pretty much, kind of blew my mind. And that was that he said, first of all, let's say, if for those that don't know Jim Rickards, he was hired by the CIA or commissioned by the CIA to come in and talk about war games, financial war games. What can a country do to us financially? And his idea right now about what the BRICS could very well do was pretty fascinating. He said, if I were the BRICS, what I would do is I would make one BRIC currency equal to the price of gold. And at that point, it's checkmate to the West. Because as the West tries to buy gold, as the price of gold goes up, it kills the value of the dollar, increases the price of gold, and strengthens the BRICS currency. If they try and inflate their way out of this problem, the dollar falls, the price of gold goes up, the BRICS currency goes way up. It's checkmate for the dollar. They don't have to do anything. The BRICS need to just sit there and let the US destroy itself from within by the printing press, the falling dollar, and gold moving up against it. So he said that was his theory, not something he knows. But look, I'll just simply say this, Bixie. I think that the world's not going to end tomorrow, even if they issue a gold-backed currency on the 22nd. But if they didn't, it doesn't matter. When you have the SCO and the Eurasian Economic Union joining this group, you're talking the majority of human population beginning to move away from the dollar, and Saudi Arabia applying to every one of these groups, being protected militarily, and joining a group that will have a bigger GDP than the West and a bigger military. So it's beginning. And I guess I just wanted to say that. I don't think it's going to, like that, change things, but it is beginning, and I think people should be aware of it. I just wanted to chime in on that.